Hello, right. Let's see if this is working. Right. Seems to be working, which is cool. I need to make this a little bit bigger for you all, I suspect, because I have a gigantic monitor and you probably can't see this stuff. Cool, let's zoom this in a bit. So I use a gigantic monitor for stuff, and which is great for me, but probably less so for all of you. Cool. So, first coffee. Am I right? Yeah, let's do that slightly. New kind of streaming setup, so still working out the kinks with stuff. So apologies. Also rambling, inevitably rambling, as I am wont to do. Right. For those people watching, if you need me to adjust settings like specifically mic and music, please let me know. I think it looks about right, but obviously I can't hear what you're hearing, so that's fair enough. Cool. Right. So as I said on Blue Sky, what we're doing here today is meant to be BG3 dropping for Mac, which is very, very awesome because I have a Mac. I have Xbox, slightly antiquated Xbox at this stage, so I've not been able to play BG3, which I'm very much looking forward to, and seeing all my friends playing it. So very, very excited to start today. It was meant to drop yesterday, memory serves. So I actually took today as leave, so I could, actually get some time to play it. And it didn't drop yesterday. I got bumped by a day, so I'm really hoping that it's at some nice UK time today that it drops, and I haven't just wasted the day. But to be honest, even if it doesn't drop until later today, it'll be nice to actually get on with some writing, which is cool, which I've not done for a little while. So that's what we're looking at today. What's going on, OBS? Come on. So what we are working on here, for those who do not follow me, is an expansion for Little But Fierce. So if you do not know what Little But Fierce is, Little But Fierce is a Windows. Maybe it'll work. Now isn't this strange? My monitor is not letting me drag stuff between screens. That is very, very strange. Let me fix this somehow. Mac, what are you doing? Oh, it's because I full screen. That is it, because I'm an idiot. And why didn't I think of that? Oh, it's going to be one of these days. So, for those who don't know, Little But Fierce is a rewrite of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, specifically aimed at kids. So, it's designed for children of age 6 and up. Though playable by anyone. So what does it mean that it's aimed for ages 6 and up? Well, I've streamlined the rules a bit, so I've removed some of the more complicated stuff to make it a bit more accessible for kids. I have simplified the language. I've not made it babyish, but I have tried to remove unnecessary complicated phrases or antiquated phrases that have crept into role-playing games over the years. And generally try to avoid complicated sentence structures, so everything reads a bit easier. And I, remove some of the rough edges and unpleasant tropes that have crept into games over the years. So that's what Little Bit Fierce is. I released, branding, yeah. I released the Starter Edition last year in April to a good response, so I like that. And I've released a couple of expansions since. I released one based on the Mara webcomic in conjunction with them at Stuff Rock Studios. and I produced an anniversary one-page expansion called Muscubus Paws, which adds cat folk and dog folk. I'm juggling between projects right now on this. I have something called Blunderlings, which is actually almost done. I just need to get my arse in gear and actually finish that at some point. So that has a kind of dungeon keepery vibe. So it adds monsters is a stretch, but it's kind of goblins and trollings and stuff like that, and generally has a kind of minions-y vibe. So that I hope to finish off soon. I really should just sit down and actually just get it done. Basically, I'm procrastinating on finishing off of the quest, and then I need to run a one-shot in order to actually test the content. I should probably do that. I just need to stop making excuses on that one. But what I'm working on right now, because I'm procrastinating from actually doing that, is the next expansion, which is called This Stuff of Legends. Yeah, I have no cover art right now. I need to figure out who I want to work with on that one. But what this is a kind of mythology type expansion. So it's got the kind of mythological theme on there of Greek myth, Roman myth, Norse myth, etc. And kind of importantly, from a rules perspective, it adds the priest class, which is essentially my take on the cleric. If there's anyone listening who's read or listened to interviews I've done on this, so essentially in the starter edition, I avoided anything to do with religion, just because it is a topic of some controversy. I have nothing against religion, I am religious myself, but introducing it into a game for kids has a few pitfalls on there. You end up with a situation of, things being divinely good or divinely wrong. If you had angels and demons, it becomes a little bit complicated. If you have fantasy deities, that some people are totally cool with that. Others are. It creates issues if they come from a kind of strict religious household where they've been raised with the notion of one god. Playing a fantasy game with fantasy gods, it creates headaches that are unnecessary. So the healer class in the starter edition is actually a druid. So I thought that was more accessible to a broader audience. But I am introducing a priest in this because it seemed appropriate for kind of a Greek Roman-y myth type of expansion, but obviously it is an add-on rather than the core content. So what's going to be included in this? So we're going to add 4 more kin. That is the equivalent of races, all based on kind of mythological creatures. We're going to add the class, as I said, the priest class. Sorry, I'm juggling my OBS settings, and for some reason, some stuff doesn't stay on the screen when I pop away from it, which is really annoying. I need to fix that. Always on top. Let's try that. No, that didn't work. Oh. And I'm rambling to myself. You can't see what I'm doing, which probably doesn't help. Why did it hide that stuff? No idea. So it's WhatsApp. I'm going to add some talents for this. That's the equivalent of feats. Some general kind of mythological ones, and some that are pretty specific, and spells. Oh, good grief, do I have to do spells? So obviously introducing priests, clerics, that introduces a raft of new spells that I need to include that otherwise available to druids or scouts, which is the equivalent of rangers. So stuff to do there. And also I'm going to introduce some more creatures, and I'll introduce some magic items. Like I want to introduce the kind of coolest magic items from mythology. So I'll have things like Jason's Golden Fleece, and I'll add in Excalibur from kind of British mythology. I'll add in Mjolnir from Norse mythology. So you get some cool kind of mythological stuff there. So that's what I'm working on. It's very early days. I didn't kind of intend to start this as early as I did. It was just one of those. It's the dreaded side project thing. You start working on a project and you're like, I'm so close to the end of this. In this case, with Blunderlings, and you just can't get the motivation to finish the thing off, which is so close to the end. I thought, well, I'll start work on a side project. And then this ended up taking time, which inevitably is how these things work. So that's what I ended up doing on this one. And it's going okay so far. Like I said, no cover art yet. I'm going to hold fire on getting an artist for this until I'm done with Blunderlings, because it's a ridiculous thing. It's me negotiating with myself on this one. So my logic here is that if I am just typing some glorified notes, which is what I'm doing right now, I haven't actually committed to this project being the primary thing I'm working on. Whereas the second I commission an artist, I've then financially invested in this. And I really do need to plow ahead with this one. Yes, I know, Dave, you've got an artist on Blunderlings, and Jen did fantastic work, and people need to see that artwork. So I should just finish that. I just need to finish it. But that's probably not going to be today. Maybe it should be. Think about it. Maybe after lunch. If BG3 hasn't dropped the Mac after lunch, I might finish Blunderlings after lunch. We'll see. I don't commit to that. More coffee. There are 4 people here. I'm hoping you are real people and not fake people. You know, bots are not fun, but if you are here and are listening to my inane gibbering, you please say hello in the chat and tell us a bit about yourself. It's be nice to know I'm not just talking into a void. Also, part of the reason I'm doing this here is actually test my streaming setup. So I recently upgraded my Mac. I had a desktop Mac from, I want to say 6-7 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer actually, which was great for a time, but it's got slower and slower and slower and slower. And so when a load of my friends and colleagues started streaming, I kind of wanted to give it a go, but I knew my Mac couldn't handle it. And it probably would have just about handled the kind of thing I'm doing right now, more or less, you know, writing streams and the like. But I figure if I'm going to commit to streaming, I want to do kind of gaming streams and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be able to play many games on my Mac itself. And I didn't have the setup for getting my Xbox plugged in and like a Stream Deck and stuff like that. So I've got that now, which is cool. I've upgraded my Mac, so now I've got a shiny new MacBook Pro, which can handle all this stuff. So yay! So that's why I'm only now just getting into this, and like I said, figuring out all the quirks and stuff like that. You know, the fun of sorting out audio on a Mac is something I was not enjoying, but I think it works now. I mean, it is telling me on the bars that this is working, that you can hear me and you can hear the royalty-free music I have playing in the background, which is a Humble Bundle that's up right now. It's from Avani Sound. This is the ambient albums, which is quite good. Yeah, very generic. This it's a bit of kind of a Blade Runner vibe. Well, certainly it sounds like it to me. But it's nice, because streaming in silence would be kind of crap. But there we go. I'm rambling. I should probably actually write something. So, where were we? So, let's look at finishing off Kin on this one. So, what we've got in this... Let's kind of make this full screen without going full screen, because then I can't drag stuff over it. Currently, frustratingly, my brain's immediately gone to Greek mythology and nothing else. So I've got Centaur, Harpies, Medusas, Gorgons, and Minotaurs, or Minotaurs. I've heard a lot of Americans say Minotaur. I've always said it's Minotaur. I think both are allowed. Maybe that's a British American thing. I don't know. So, give me just 1 second while I just check social stuff. let's just wait into Discord for a second. So, I know this bit's kind of boring. This is me sorting out shit I really should have sorted in advance because I'm kind of wigging this. This wasn't, as I said, this wasn't my plan for today. The plan was I was going to, you know, enjoy my day off, start BG3, and probably be, what's the time? Probably an hour or something into character creation is my understanding, which is just crazy. That's how long people are spending on character creation. But then I see screenshots and then I see people going, yeah, I'm like, oh, I totally get it. You know, given that amount of freedom, yeah, that's fun. So. Just talking to myself. There's probably a better way to the way I'm doing stuff. Anyway, where was I before I got distracted by myself? Good grief, this is dangerous. This is stream of consciousness stuff, which I guess is kind of the point of streaming. But if you're expecting kind of organisation here, it's probably not going to happen. Hey, hello, Katerina. How are we doing? Good morning, how are you doing? As I've just kind of been explaining here, this kind of wasn't the intention of what I was planning to do today. I took the day off work, intentionally, properly, not just Skiving, because BG3 is meant to drop for Mac. Well, originally it was meant to drop yesterday, and I thought, well, if it's going to drop on Thursday, let's take Friday off, and then I can download it, test it out a bit on Thursday, and then have all of Friday. And then they bumped it by a day, which kind of sucks. So I'm hoping it's going to drop at some point today. How am I? I'm good. Mildly caffeinated. I think there may have to be a be right back in a second to refill said mug. But I'm not too bad. It is kind of grey today. It was, raining a lot in the night. But honestly, I'll take a bit of rain and a bit of wind right now compared to the heat we've had recently. But I'm not too bad, not too bad. How are you? And please tell me how my levels are and all of this. Feedback is useful. I kind of tested it myself, but you don't really know how it is until people are actually listening. So how is the kind of ratio of my blether against the background music? And I will tweak it if not. Yeah, that sucks. BG3 not being ready yet. It's one, and I don't know when it's going to drop today. I'm kind of. Larian have not been good with Mac, unfortunately. They, the way they've handled this has not been great. Music's very low. Well, I'll just turn up just a smidge. Yeah, and then he says that, and then it jumps between tracks. There we go. Okay. Yeah, they're not being good with Mac, so they kind of said from the start, yeah, it's coming to Mac from the start, and then they're like, oh, it's an early release for Mac, and it was. And then they said, yay, it's launching, and they didn't say it wasn't coming out for Mac, so I actually bought it. I bought it just before it released because I wanted the digital down and stuff, and I knew by that time I was replacing my Mac, so I was going to be able to play it. And then literally the day I got my Mac, I set it all up, I'd done everything, I launched it, and went, this is early release, and then I found out, oh, it didn't launch. That's fun. And then they'd given some vague kind of, yeah, it'll be later in the month, and we're aiming to coincide it with the PS5 release. And then they didn't really say anything. And literally on the shite. Right, let's turn the music down a bit. I will master this eventually, he says, making a bold claim. There we go. Sweet. Good stuff. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah, so PS5 stuff. So literally the day of the PS5 drop, people were saying, including me, were going like, "What's happening with the Mac release? Please just tell us something." Because they didn't even say, "Oh, it's not coming out today," or "It's not coming out tomorrow." They just didn't say anything. And then in the comments to the PS5 release, they said, "Oh, it's going to be later this month." You know, they didn't even make it an official announcement. They didn't even do a main tweet. They just responded to some people's tweets going, "Yeah, it'll be later in the month. We're kind of sorry." Um, so that wasn't great. And then they did it with patch 3, and then they told us yesterday that it's been bumped today. So we'll see when it comes out today. I don't know where Larian are based. I could Google it, but I don't even know even if that influences what time they drop it. I just have this kind of nervous fear it's going to be like 5 p.m. or something like that, because it's going to be like, oh, that's 9 o'clock or something in LA, and therefore we're dropping it in the evening. So my day off of work kind of wouldn't have let me play it. That's the way I suspect this is going to end up. But if it does, it is what it is. You know, I'll get a chance to play it in the evenings. I'll get a chance to play it over the weekend. And I can actually get on with some writing, which is kind of why I'm here. So I should probably actually do that. Yeah, it's probably more productive use of my time. So, as I was saying, what we're looking at is this is the Stuff of Legend, which is going to be the Little But Fierce release after Blunderlings. So I'm just kind of working around this. I have a very, not a great way of working, but it sort of works for me. So the way I tend to write stuff is I tend to make a bit of a template for the document and then start peppering in content as my brain leaps between them. So you'll notice if I skim through this document, there's some bits that have got loads of content on here, and then bits in yellow, which are essentially my placeholder of, Dave, you've got to come back to this at some stage. Because if I just try and do it from top to bottom, it doesn't work. Equally, if I try and go, right, I'm going to blitz this section, I then hit that wall of, no, I can't do the last 10%, but I've got a little bit of energy and a bit of enthusiasm for something else. It's that whole side project. So I then go and do another little bit. So you'll see that this kin section, the rules bits are mostly there. I've not done the lore stuff at the top here, which I'm going to do in just a second, because that bit is not too hard now. The priest class itself, I've done quite a bit of it, but I still have some bits and bobs I need to fill in, which are highlighted yellow or in red. Spells, I've barely started. I have done a boring bit of it. I've gone through, that's right, these are all the spells that a priest, i.e. a cleric, can take. I've cross-referenced a spreadsheet I have. In fact, let me find the spreadsheet. I'm very, very detail-oriented on some stuff. So I have this. This is my spell spreadsheet. So this is me keeping track of 5th edition Creative Commons now. Used to be OGL spells with their 5e name. What I've renamed it in Little But Fierce. Doing some of the conversion for me. Not a huge amount of it. So, like, spell level became spell grade in Little But Fierce, just so we didn't confuse it with character level, which has always been a naming convention thing I have not liked. I changed the spell school. They have slightly different names, like enchantment is control, necromancy is doom. Doom on you. Duration protection. I've got some stuff on like range and length and stuff like that. The big one for me is keeping track of which spellcasting classes have access to these spells, because it makes my record keeping an awful lot easier. So if I'm doing what I'm doing right now, so window. So if I'm doing what I'm doing now, I'm going, great. I'm doing the priest spell list. So I know that I had druids in the starter edition. So I know that some of these spells I have already made, and I've already named them and stuff like that. So in that case, I can just refer out to a spell that already exists. So I've just gone through, and as you see, the ones in black here are where I've gone through and gone, great, I've already done that one. That comes through from a book. I'm not going to copy the text, but at least I know, right, those are the bits done. So the red bits are the bits I still need to do. And you'll see there's still the 5e names. So the second I start doing these, part of the process will be converting the rules, which most of the time isn't too bad. Sometimes it's a bit more fiddly. Damage is a bit more fiddly. I have to use a spreadsheet for that. But then I need to come up with a name, which is sometimes easy and sometimes really hard. It's the coming up with a name for something that is obvious what it is, isn't scary, isn't creepy, which sounds creepy in two senses. A lot of the necromancy stuff sounds really creepy from a spooky perspective, but there's also stuff that is kind of creepy, like the kind of domination kind of spells. The names of stuff just sounds unpleasant because fundamentally it is an unpleasant concept. I think that's something that's not really spoken about, which probably should be. It's that whole fantasy thing about, I've got a spell that can control people, or love potions that can make people fall in love with you. It's like, that's actually not cool. So that's a whole thing in terms of language and theme and stuff like that. And there's definitely stuff I've taken out, or at least toned down, into more of a, you are suggesting something. You can't suggest something that they wouldn't fundamentally want to do. It's one of these lines I've had to walk on all of this because kids would like spells. It's like, you can convince the guard to walk away and have a snack and you can sneak through, but, you're not going to be able to convince the guard to punch his friend in the face. Yeah, that's a whole thing. So yeah, I've got to come up with the names and stuff. And then also it's names I've not already used. And that's as I get further and deeper into this project, I end up finding, I've used that name for something else. Or whether it's a spell that's got a similar notion I've used the name for, or I've used it somewhere else. I'm trying to be really good on not reusing names of other things. Like if I've got a kin trait, called, I don't know, thick skin, I try not to have a creature trait called thick skin unless it fundamentally does the same thing or is very close to being the same thing. Because I just want it to be easy and accessible, and that inevitably means I'm putting a lot of effort, putting a lot of pressure on myself. But the goal is to make it as nice as possible for kids. So if I'm at a situation where I've got to do a bit more work so it's easier for the kids, then I'll do a bit more work so it's easier for the kids. What I don't want is the kids' parents going, they really like it, but there's some stuff in here that just makes no sense. Because I'll probably go, yeah, you're right, I was just too lazy to fix it. That's not a good answer. Let's try and do this properly. Especially as the goal here is to do a Kickstarter. Or crowdfunding of some sort. I don't know if it'll be Kickstarter. I have to review at the time what the best financial and advertising perspective thing is to use, whether it's Kickstarter or Crowdfunder or something else. But I'm hoping, as I go through various iterations of the starter edition and do the expansions and stuff, by the time I do the crowdfunded version, which will be a hardback, which will be wonderful, I will have teased out all of the issues along the way, rather than... I still will have to do kind of beta testing and stuff for the full version, but I'm really hoping that that's fine-tuning little bits and pieces rather than, fundamentally having to do some of this from scratch, because that would be kind of suckish. But, Katsarina, when I do find it, believe me, I will be wanting to speak to you about some stuff. Why has my taskbar jumped onto the bottom of this page? That makes no sense. Why has it done that? And now it's jumped back. Max, you do some weird stuff sometimes. I have no idea why you do it. That is bananas. Oh, I have more people here. That's fun. Please do say hello. Assuming you're a real person. If you are a lurking person, just to up my numbers, thank you so much for that, because I have no clue what I'm doing here. yeah, it's probably worth saying at the get-go. I'm not going to be a dedicated streamer on this, you know. I'm very busy. I have a 3-year-old. You know, my time is very rare. And the fact is there's some stuff I don't want to stream. I know some people, the second they got things like BG3, they, you know, everything is streamed because everything is content, everything is money. And I totally get that. If that's your source of income or one of your primary sources of income, go for it. Me, you know, it's just a cool way of, you know, getting a bit more exposure on some of this stuff. And also, it is, I'm not going to lie, it's a lazy way of doing preview stuff. Because one of my terrible things I do is I have a Patreon and Ko-fi? Don't know how you say that. Never said it out loud. And I'm terrible at doing updates, or I'm very meticulous about updates, and therefore I never do like a tiny little, hey, here's a little thing that's going, you can't see my hand there. Yeah, that's weird. I have 2 cameras here. I have one, because my setup here is I have my laptop is down in front of me. I've got a big monitor in front, and I've got one to the side. You can't see my hands. And I've got one to the side, which has got my music on it, which means that my laptop's webcam is at a really kind of unflattering angle. I will switch it on for just a second so you can kind of see. It is that, which it could be worse, to be honest. If I'm slouching, it's worse than it might be. But if I'm looking up at the screen atop me, you just kind of see my neck and my beard, which I think that would be a very specific sort of stream for the neck beard people out there. So I use one to the side there, but I forget the fact that you're looking at me at an angle, and therefore when I wave my arm, this hand here, you can see it, but this one, it's over here and you're not seeing it. So I will get used to this over time, he says. Very hopefully, optimistically, and the like. So I've gone off on a huge tangent. What the heck am I doing here? So, right, yeah, writing stuff. It's a nice way of sharing what I'm working on in previews, kind of as I do it. You know, so rather than me doing something and then, you know, in my limited time doing the writing and then going, oh my god, I don't have the energy to actually do a write-up about it. It means I can kind of say, hey, I did it. And then I could always post the video to Patreon. There's an idea. Yes, content for free. That's a genius way of doing stuff. He says, as if he's invented something that probably people have been doing for ages. I've just got a notification. So there is a place not too far from here where we've taken our 3-year-old before. And it was really, really fun. And they have an app for some of the stuff they do there. Which is useful while you're there because it gives you like a live map and it gives you notification when things are about to start. Like, oh, there's about to be this person in a costume, you know, in 5 minutes. So go there, which is great. But I've not turned the notifications off on the app. So I'll be in the middle of doing something like right now. And it's like, oh, notification on my watch. And it says, quick, last chance for the dinosaur day out. Your family can meet dinosaurs, which sounds awesome. I'm not going to lie. Maybe that's something I should look at this weekend. But I'll be midway through doing something and it says, there's a bouncy castle. And it's like, this is not helping my concentration on the shit I'm actually meant to be doing. You know, sometimes it's hard enough for me to slog through. All right, I'll just do the really boring thing or the really tedious thing. And then my watch is like, you know, like a kind of a slightly distracted ADHD shoulder angel going, dinosaurs, bouncy castles, bubble fair. You know, seeing all these things that sound great to 3-year-olds. And honestly, you know, sounds appealing to her. What am I now? 38? 38-year-old. Yeah. God, 40's approaching. Not there yet. My brother's 40. Imminently. So he gets to go through that first. But right, let's actually write something. Let's see if we can blitz some of these, and then I'm going to refill my coffee in a second because I've got the dregs of some coffee here. It's getting a little bit cold. So let's actually write some stuff. And then we'll have a brief bio break for fluid in and fluid out. I will remember to turn my microphone off. That because that would not be fun. I had to have the door closed today. I'm still on my streaming setup. I was tempted to have the door open, but then you can kind of see all the towels hanging on my banister, which is not a great look. But I might prop it open later in case Marmaduke, our cat, decides to wander in. He does like distracting me while I'm doing anything. He's got a wonky claw on one of his feet, so one of his paws. So if he jabs you for love, which he does frequently, it's like a little bit of a stab. We're assuming it's accidental. He could just be a vicious little bastard, but I don't think it's in his nature. Anywho, stop rambling, Dave. Actually frickin' write something. Right, so I said we've got the rules on this one, so let's write some blurb. And get back into the little but fierce writing mindset. So, right. Right, harpies are... No, they're not. Let's get the description right. So they are part human and part human with the wings and claws. Bird. I'm trying to get with the harpies have they've got wings. Do they have arms? That's a good question. I do know this because I've written a harpy version for something that we've done before. What was the... Let's be self-referential here. Let's do that. So let's look at the stuff I actually wrote. This is ridiculous. I've written like 8 words or something like that. I'm already doubting myself. This is... this is my way of working. It is not a good way of working. I'm not going to deny it for a second. But it is a way of working. Anywho, let's look at something I actually wrote before with wonderful artwork by Katerina, who is in this stream. Let's see the blurb that I went when I did harpies for my D&D supplement. Again, this is my brain doing tangents. Every time I see that, I don't even know how you pronounce it. It's the kind of Ursula from Little Mermaid, I think. But every time I read it as Cecilia, you're breaking my heart. My brain just does ridiculous links. It is what happens. Anywho, come on, right, Harpy, what did I say? I have a lot more lore when I write 5e stuff. So, this artwork, we have harpies. They have wings, they have arms, but they have bird talons for hands and feet. That is the fundamental on this one, isn't it? So they definitely do have arms. They do have arms. So that's something. So let's try and get the description to be vaguely correct without being needlessly complicated. Are part human with wings, with feathery wings, and bird claws instead of hands and feet. There we go. So we've nailed down the difference here. They're not just humans with big angelic-y wings. They're a little bit more than that. And I know human, they've probably got pointy ears and stuff like that, but meh. It's trying to paint the picture of what it is. Now, I will eventually have artwork for all this stuff once I figure out once I've done enough bit, and as I said earlier, once I'm at a stage where it is worth me committing to bringing in an artist, I would have art of all of this stuff because, kids may not know what all of this is, and especially for younger kids, pictures are worth 1,000 words and all of that. So I want to have a quick, concise description that makes it very clear what it is, supported by artwork. There we go. Anyway, right, harpies are part human, but with feathery wings and bird claws instead of hands and feet. How old do we think harpies can get? I think probably is a canon answer for D&D. I reckon birds probably not quite as old. Well, let's say they're probably comparable to humans. They are as old about as old as most humans. Generally a bit shorter than that. Now, generally my third sentence of a blurb talks a little bit about kind of what they're known for, which is flavour, but I also want to avoid stereotyping on this one, because I could say, they send sailors to their deaths and stuff like that, like sirens and stuff like that, all the people like that. But, that will go in a mythology facts box here. I don't want that to be the fundamental thing about this race. We're treating them as if all races are equal here. So what are they? Let's talk about the fact they've got a charming voice. So we'll not say what they use it for. Their voices are enchanting. Let's avoid word there. Well, I want to say something like, even if they're really shit at talking, they've got beautiful voices. I'm clearly not going to say that. Come on, I want something on that vein here. So what are we talking about there? Their voice. They have a musical. I want to say something like a musical hint or twang to their voice. They sound nice. Even if, let's go with that. No matter what they say, they have beautiful, almost musical voices, making them nice to listen to. It's not Shakespeare, but it's that'll do for now. I'll doubt myself on this one. Right, is there anyone here who can help on this one? Right, so small tangent for this one. What a surprise! So I have OBS open on another monitor. There is the main screen here, which previews all my main stuff, and then there is a stream information bit on the left, and a stream chat bit on the right. In fact, let's just... Oh, it's probably going to break if I try. So let's... This is a terrible idea. Let's change the source for this. Let's go to the built-in display for a second. So, hey, everything, everywhere. So, as you can see, I have a main screen bit here, and these two bits on the side. The problem is, if I click on anywhere away from this, the bits on the side disappear, which is annoying because then I lose my chat preview. I mean, I could chuck the chat somewhere else. Is there a way to pin this stuff so it doesn't disappear while I'm streaming? Because I would prefer just to glance down at the chat rather than me having to constantly clicking to see if anyone says anything. Docs. Is it on docs? Lock docs. That sounds good. No, doesn't do anything. Back. Right, come on. There's got to be something here. I mean, that stops me from breaking it, which is great, but I do just kind of want it to just float there, because that would be nice. I want the chat, at the very least I want my chat to just kind of be pinned and always on top. There's got to be a way to do it. Come on, there's got to be something. This shouldn't be rocket science. View. More. Come on, there's got to be a way of doing this. It seems silly if there's not. Because the alternative is I open like a Chrome window with a preview of my chat, which seems kind of silly as a way of doing things. There's got to be some sort of thing. Why is this not an obvious setting? Or is it that it is obvious and I'm just not good at this yet? I mean, that's undoubtedly true. But there's got to be something. Minimize, enable, not system tray. Come on, there's got to be something on there. I know you can't see what I'm looking at right now, but transition to Poo. Overflow always visible. What's that? That's not it. Ah. Why is this not just an obvious freaking thing? What am I missing here? I just want my chat to be always visible. That feels like it should be a really freaking easy thing to do. And yet, I can't do it. This may just be a thing that's going to annoy me for a while. I've got a view thing that says always on top, but I think that's just for the main window. So that if I click, yeah, if I click on other stuff, that makes that bit always on top, not the other bits. Why wouldn't you have the same setting for the side bits? Because that's just silly. Right, I'm just going to Google this. Just give me 1 second. Right, OBS chat always. Come on, there's got to be a way. How do I keep doing open? I'll give it just 1 more second on this, and then I'll. When the options no, right. I'm just going to deal with the fact that it's just going to keep disappearing, and I will deal with this when I'm not on camera, because it's really boring to just see me searching through menus that you can't see, and blethering about it to myself. Right, let's stop procrastinating. Let's finish these two, buy a break, and then get back to this. I know, and then I'll see what you want me to have a look at. It's done that thing again where it jumps the. Why would it do that? You see, there must be some reason that it's doing it, but for some reason it's jumped this to be here. Maybe it thinks this is my primary monitor now. I don't know, but it's really annoying. Oh, Max, you are wonderful, like 90-something% of the time, and every so often you do the weirdest shit, and I don't know why. Anyway, let's talk about Medusas. I will get some blurb about Harpies mythology stuff. I will do those at the end. Right, Medusas have the body of a green-skinned... Let's stop comparing people to humans. Medusas have green or probably as a green or brown skin with snakes instead of hair. Some of them have legs. Others have long, scaly tails. What was my blurb for, like... This is the problem with me picking up projects after a while. I forget the way I phrase stuff. So let's jump into Little But Fierce, table of contents. Tell me, how did I phrase stuff for, like, races that live a long time? I said, okay, so humans elves can get very old. Let's put that. They can get very old with some Medusas. What's the phrase I used? Yes, So with some users, let's just steal the blurb off of that. They can get very old, sometimes as old as. Yeah, sometimes old as. Let's choose a number. Let's say like 250. Unknown. So one of the point I want to get here is, so essentially I've got it as a stunning gaze to begin with, but when they get really old, that can actually turn people to stone. So maybe I turn this around. Some have legs and others have long scaly tails. It becomes a very long sentence. Maybe I just ditch this bit about the legs and the scaly tails. Have midges of green or brown skin with snakes instead of hair. When a person looks into their eyes, Medusa can stun them. It can get very old, sometimes. What's the best way so it flows? When a person looks into their eyes and Medusa. I think I like it. They can get very sometimes as old as 250. All Medusas can stun people. Very old. Can even turn people to stone. There we go. That's melodramatic. There's that whole Medusa Gorgon thing. I've stuck with Medusa on this one. I still don't even know if I'm going to stick with it. I did in Little But Fierce. I think I maybe even had a mention of the fact in the call book that some people call them Gorgons. So I stuck with Medusas on this one because it's the familiar D&D term. I might change it at some point. But then it becomes that whole thing of like, Medusa sounds like it should be plural then. You go, you know, or, and then one Medusa is a Medusum. That sounds bad. That sounds like Magism, which is, yeah, definitely not for a kids game. Clicked on Steam instead. Go away, Steam. Unless you're telling me that Baldur's Gate 3 has got a thing ready, go away. I'm not listening to you right now. Right, anyway. Cool. All right. 3 down. Cool. Right. Minotaurs, or as I say, some people say Minotaur. I've always said Minotaur. And that's one of those things where I don't know. Did other people find this? That, especially if you were a geeky kid who turns into a geeky adult, you learned words by reading them. And then you inevitably, we're talking with fellow geeky friends, all use the same terminology or the same pronunciation, which may have been wrong. And then when you hear someone else say it, you're convinced, oh, no, it's said this way. And then you realize the only reason you think it was said that way is because you and your geeky friends decided that you read it that way, and then you kind of echo-chambered into this being the way it's pronounced. So every so often with things, especially fantasy stuff, I'm like, is this like a UK, US pronunciation thing, or is it just that I read a word as a kid and I've always pronounced it that way? So I did have to check, and yes, Minotaur and Minotaur are both valid pronunciations of this, so I will keep saying Minotaur. The classic one that I had this with was Chimera. Chimera, as a kid playing like Warhammer. Me and my brother and my friends pronounced it as Chimera because it would totally make sense as a pronunciation of it if you didn't know that. So we said Chimera. And then I want to say Mission Impossible 2, a film I have not seen since, has some Greek mythological names in it. So it has, I want to say there's like a disease in it named after that word that begins with a C. and then Bellerophon is the cure, which is a Greek mythological reference. And then we saw this film, and they called it Chimera. And me and my friends went, what? Are they pronouncing it wrong? And then later on, I know that it is actually pronounced Chimera and not Chimera. The other one I have like that is, I don't do it often, but as a kid, I read ethereal as ethereal, which kind of made sense. But then every so often, if I'm kind of on autopilot, I've caught myself almost saying ethereal. Well, I mean ethereal. There's loads of stuff like that. I don't know if other people have the same experience, but it is one of those things that, never make fun of someone for pronouncing a word wrong if they read it in a book, because it meant they read a freaking book. So, good on them. Maybe gently correct them, at some point, but don't name and shame them just for pronouncing a word wrong because they read it in a book. How else are we going to learn stuff? Oh well. Right, let's do the last one of these and then get some coffee, and then we will pop into, I don't know what we'll pop into. I don't really want to attack priests today. Attack priests, that sounds like a very different stream again. My dad is a priest, so if I was doing a stream about attacking priests, I feel that'd be, not great. I might have a look at spells. I mean, I'm thinking kind of spells or creatures, maybe, which will be a little bit of showing you behind the scenes of how I adapt Creative Commons 5e content into Little But Fierce content, which some of it's automated, and some of it is me doing some shenanigans with rules and streamlining and all this kind of stuff. But so I'm thinking one of those two. So if you are listening and have an opinion, let me know which you'd be interested in, and we'll have a look at one of those two after the coffee break. So, Minotaurs. Minotaurs are large, furry, and have faces that look like bulls. I don't technically could say cows, but which is weird because I've never seen a female Minotaur in a game. I'd quite like to see a female Minotaur game. I have an idea that I would love at some point to play a Highland Minotaur in a game. I used to live in Scotland, and there were Highland cows at the end of our road. Not just randomly, that's not a word. Randomly wandering around. There was a farmer who kept. But Highland cows are adorable. They are big, shaggy, orange cows. So I would love to play like a Scottish Minotaur who is like a Highland Minotaur with big, shaggy, orange fur. But anyway, the point I was trying to make was, inevitably when you see a Minotaur character, they have the kind of more bullish with horns and the like. I'm just going to adjust my headphones a little bit. Yeah, but if I say they look like cows, I feel it paints a different picture because, and it's one of those weird things. I mean, because cows, is cows the general term? Cows is the general term for the animal, right? But also it's the female version of the animal. So it's one of those that inevitably, if I say cows, you think of the kind of cute, kind of, big ears, no horns and stuff. Whereas a Minotaur, you expect them to look more like a bull, with, big horns and the like. I'll leave it as bulls for now. I will think about that. Because I don't want the implication that Minotaurs always have to look like blokes. But equally, that's interesting. This how I don't know if there are other writers out there or creators of some sort. It's one of these things where you end up. There are so many things, especially fantasy writing, which are so embedded in a notion of based on a thing, like Minotaur is based on the Minotaur in the amazing Greek mythology. And, you know, has been expanded upon into, is it Taurons or something in World of Warcraft and stuff like that? And then you go, oh, it can't be that because, and then you try to logically explain it and you realize I don't have a good reason for not saying the thing, because it just comes down that I am working off a stereotypical image rather than a more broad canvas of, Minotaurs can come in all shapes and sizes. So maybe I should just say cows. Does that look like a cow or a bull? Let's go for broader canvas. Cool. What do we think? How old can Minotaurs get? I reckon they should probably live a long time. Now, I don't know if that's correct to D&D, but if I'm rooting this in mythology, we had a Minotaur in a maze. Now, I assume if you bother to build a frickin' maze to house a Minotaur, unless they're breeding like tribbles, that Minotaur lives a long time. Otherwise, you probably wait him out. You don't go to the effort of building a giant frickin' stone maze for a creature that doesn't live very long. So I'm going to say that they can live quite a while. They can live... get very they far older than humans sometimes with some Minotaurs. Getting to 500 years. Let's just go for a crazy amount. And it adds an air of colour to this, what did I can't remember what I said about. Where's books? Open this book. What did I say about elves? Elves live to 750, and that's taken from D&D. I like adding bits of interesting lore richness to races that maybe just get, the exciting thing about them is like giant bull man. That is cool. But when you have the idea that, a Minotaur live to be 500, I think you start to consider the fact that, they are old, wise creatures. And then you get now again, the Highland Minotaur, you then go from, being some, I don't know, stereotypical Bloom Wallacey, wearing a kilt, But then if you turn me to an old, wise Scottish Highland Minotaur, that's another brilliant image. You get this kind of sarcastic Billy Connolly, you want some generic kind of noise around there, and gravel here, and you miserable Scottish, whiskey, and it sounds like I smoked, 5,000 cigars or the like. I like the idea. I mean, why did I go for the miserable Scottish bastard kind of thing? Sorry, Hamish, if you're listening, but you would act offended and then agree with me. But I think the notion of Minotaurs potentially being very old, kind of ancient, I think that's fun. Why don't I go more? Why would it be fun? So get it to 1,000 years old. Whatever Minotaur can live longer than a frickin' elf. I think that's fun. To 1,000 years old. Yeah. Why not? It's bananas, but I like it. It created an interesting notion for these characters that a Minotaur can live for a freaking long time. And that's maybe why they're solitary, not just because they've been imprisoned in a maze. Maybe, they like, their space. They're telling people to, get off their lawn, and by their definition of a lawn, it's like a whole freaking country. I like that. That's fun. Okay. Um, their thick skin and sharp horns. Very dangerous. I don't like that. It's too generic. Come on, you can do better than this, Dave. Right, they're. I'm going to correct it before I even. The thick skin and sharp horns make them very dangerous. That is so boring. Come on, right? Don't talk about them in a fight. Let's. Else. Let's not make them dangerous in a fight. I mean, maybe it's about a survival thing. What makes them cool from a survival perspective? Their thick skin and sharp horns. I've already said they've got sharp horns, so maybe let's not talk about the horns. What's it now known for their thick skin, both in. If I were trying to be clever here, don't try and do that. If I was trying to be clever here and I was writing a D&D supplement rather than Level of Fist, I would probably go for, oh, it's a thick skin and physically and, emotionally. But I think that's, I think that's too much there. What are we're getting into 1,000 years? Let's just expand the following bit. They can get far older than humans with some more symbols. Let's go for reaching 1,000 years old. This makes ancient, elderly minotaurs some of the oldest, wisest kin in the world. In the world around. Can make? Maybe can make. Because just because you're old doesn't mean you actually would. You may have spent 1,000 freaking years being ignorant to everything. Oh, almost got political with Brexit and shit like that. This can make elderly miners some of the oldest and wisest kin in the land. I like that. In the land it gives me this kind of fairy tale kind of vibe. Okay. Shall we do the mythological facts shit? It needs doing. Not sure if it's interesting for you to watch. But maybe we'll do it. But I do need to pee and I need more coffee. So I think let's take a bio break on this one and come back to this in a moment. So I think we'll take a quick 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. No, 5 minutes. 5 minutes is fine. Stop. Can I stop procrastinating, which I want to do. So let's take a quick 5-minute break. I'll leave the music running. And maybe I'll switch to another of the royalty-free ones afterwards. Cool. 5 minutes, refill the coffee, pee, and we'll come back to this in a second and give some thought to whether you'd like me to do spells or creatures after this. Yeah. Cool. Right, I will see you all in just a second. All right? See yourself for now. Cool. And you heard an echo there because I had a preview on in the background and it came through my desktop audio. That's not what I wanted. Shall we change the music? So let's try fantasy. So for those who have not played around with it, let's grab a Chrome tab on it. You didn't need to see all my freaking bookmarks. Except it's just gonna show me now. It doesn't matter. What was I doing? Something. I completely lost what I was saying. Oh yeah, Humble Bundle. Yeah, so Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle right now have a bundle of cool audio stuff. Is it this one? It's not this one. They've got 2 bundles, or is one of them gone already? Really? I think it's this one. So this is what I'm using. This is Audio Odyssey software bundle. I grabbed this the other day thinking I might do a bit of streaming. And I could also use it for video editing and shit like that. But I thought that this would be good. And also for DMing whenever I actually get a chance to do that. Because this has a load of, I mean, it's got sound effects, which are cool. I will use them for video editing and stuff. But the important thing is it's got music packs. So it's got fantasy and metal and unplugged and stuff like that, and hip hop and all sorts. And I thought, yeah, cool. Grab that for 20 quid, because it gives me background music for this, which is royalty free, rather than risking angering the legal gods with using something that is not allowed on stream, which would not be an auspicious start to streaming. Anywho, that was the point I was trying to make. Yeah, so worth picking up. It's got, each track's about like 90 seconds long, but there's also like a 30-second and a 60-second cut. So if you want to do like a kind of wham bam teaser trailer, it's kind of cool. So it takes a little bit of time to turn it into an actual, album, which is what I did. But yeah, that's cool. I've not listened to all of them yet, but it's nice. It provides a bit of background music and the like. So there you go. And while we're gone, I had to figure out how to delete a message because someone decided they wanted to use my channel for advertising. I'm fine, thank you. So goodbye to that. Anywho, right, what are we doing? So let's get the... How do we get this in bar to go back onto the... I don't know. I don't know why this is popped here rather than being down there. I'll find out in just a second. Actually, move the dock to the other screen. Move the cursor to the bottom of the screen and the display when the dots appear on, and keep moving the cursor down. Ah, it does do that. Okay, so that's why. So I maybe was floating the mouse around the bottom here, and it just jumps. That's really weird. I need to find a way to turn that off. I assume there is nothing from Larian. Let's find out. Larian. Oh, that's the tune that made Marion. Larian. Do 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 do. Nothing that I can see. That's Baldur's Gate patch 3. Come on. Come on. People are writing articles about the fact that it comes out today. Okay, that's something. I'm thinking when I finally get to play it, I think my music stopped. That I'm going to play a Ranger Rogue, I think. It's that whole metagaming thing. I'm trying to go into it as cold as I can. But equally, I think you can only have 4 people in your party, so you've actually got to think really carefully about who you want to have from a party balance perspective, even though I know very little about their personalities beyond everyone is horny. Yeah. What I don't want to do is... I want to have the flexibility of making sure I can choose who I want to have from a combination of party dynamics and personalities, rather than feeling I have to take someone. I mean, but essentially the main one that is, I did a quick scan through the classes. I know you can respec, but I believe Asterion is a thief, and the only thief. So my concern is that if I don't go part thief, I kind of have to take him, whether I like him or not. And maybe I will find him, you know, charmingly offensive or offensively charming. I don't know. But, I don't know. I liked having the flexibility, because thieves are one of those really important things. If you don't have a thief, you are going to be in trouble every time you encounter a lockbox or something like that. So I don't know. I could just respec. I don't want to talk. What? The notion of respeccing an NPC the first time I play a game is. I don't want to do it. So we'll see. So yeah, Ranger Rogue, I'm thinking. We will see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And I've heard there is good fun to be had when you can talk to animals and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. Okie doke. Right, where were we? Right, let's look at some mythology. I think so. Let's wrap. So if I don't wrap it up now, I'm just going to leave it as a thing I have to do later on, which is kind of my way of working. I'm not going to lie. But the point remains, let's just get it done. Let's stop being lazy and just get the thing done. Right, so harpies. Well, let's get some blurb from the internet. Now, I know that they, you know, lurked and attacked ships. I want to say it's Odyssey stuff. It's been a while. Greek and Roman mythology. Blah, blah, blah. Virgil talked about. Bird-bodied, girl-faced things are abominable, their droppings. Abominable, their droppings? Their hands are talons, their faces haggard with hunger insatiable. Here's another one description here. Before this man, an extraordinary band of women slept. Seated on thrones, no, not women, but rather gorgons I call them, and yet I cannot compare them to the forms of gorgons either. Once, before I saw some creatures in a painting carrying off the feast of Phineus, but these are wingless in appearance, black altogether disgusting, they snore with repulsive breaths. They drip from their eyes hateful drops. Their attire is not fit to bring either before the statues of the gods or into the homes of men. Oh my! I have never seen the tribe that produced this company, nor the land that boasts of rearing this brood with impunity and does not grieve for its labour afterwards. Okay, yeah, cool. Hygienius said, they are said to have been feathered with cocks' heads, wings, and human arms, with great claws, breasts, bellies, and female parts human. Well, you horny, horny devil. Seriously. Right, so let's get a bit of blurb. What do we know about them? In Greek mythology, let's get the blurb there. So, Zeus punished. Well, let's get blurb. So the Wikipedia blurb here is that angry that Phineus gave away the god's secret plans, Zeus punished him by binding him and putting on an island with a buffet of food that he could never eat because the harpies always arrived to steal the food from under him. Yeah, that feels like it's less like the harpies and more about that poor bastard. So let's talk about Jason and the Argonauts. Phineus promised to instruct them to respect the course to take if they would deliver him from the harpies. Harpies were to perish by the hands of Boreades? There's always a thing. I've seen people have seen that meme about pronouncing non-Greek words in a Greek way. The running joke that some of us had as kids was that there was a great Greek hero called Bullfaces, which obviously is bull feces, which is bullshit. Because geeky kids. Anywho, right, stop procrastinating. Right, what am I going to say about these guys? What have I got? Okay. So, What are we saying then? This is a terrible Wikipedia article. Which just doesn't kind of say much about them. I'm sure they attacked ships in the night or something like that. But maybe my memory of Greek mythology is just very, very poor. That is entirely true. I mean, like, I haven't studied the Greek since I was in like primary school. Well, maybe we go for the first one. What do we say about Jason the Argonauts? Phineas promised to instruct them respecting the course. They would deliver him from the Harpies. Let me just bring this blurb up. This is the blurb. If they would soon deliver him with the Harpies, but also like succeeding according to an ancient oracle, the Harpies were to perish by the hands of Boreades. Oh, I have. Sorry, someone at the front door. I'll be back in just a second. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, so context here. So I do a lot of eBaying right now. Ever since we moved house, I've been getting rid of stuff that I've been meaning to eBay for ages. So board games I don't play, old CCG, TCG cards. So I'm doing a lot of eBaying, and we have quite a good service with Royal Mail here that you can they can do collections for stuff. So rather than me going to the post office and delivering stuff, they will come and collect it, which is nice. Welcome back, Katerina. I hope you're morning. Is it still morning for you there? I forget. Is Portugal a slightly different time zone to us? Is it 1 hour out? That's my assumption I've been working on. I kind of assume France, Spain, Portugal, all an hour different to Britain. Ah, there you go. I stand corrected. Is that always the case, or is it a BST thing? Or is it just because... Yeah, because you're just... Let's get my geography right here. Just to the side of Spain, and therefore kind of, I guess, more or less line up with UK. Yeah, okay. Geography is not my expertise. I should know this stuff. I really should. Anywho, as I was saying, yeah, so Royal Mail do collections here, which is wonderful. It makes eBaying so easy. I'd always put off eBaying stuff because it's just a faff. You know, you got to get through all the pain of selling the stuff. Then you got to package it all up yourself. Then you got to lug it to the post office. You got to buy the labels. You got to ship it all off, and it's just a faff. Whereas I managed to get into quite the nice system where I forked out for a label printer, so I can just purchase the labels through Royal Mail's website, print the label myself, stick it on the stuff, and then they'll come and collect it the next day. It is incredibly convenient. You know, it is the laziest way of selling stuff ever, but it's a nice way to do stuff. You know, rather than lugging stuff down to the post office all the time. And the label printer, I want to say, was something like 150 quid, which is not something I'd buy just for the hell of it. But when I realised, oh god, I'm selling an awful lot of stuff, I thought, well, actually, lugging stuff to the post office is going to be such a faff. You know, I think Royal Mail can print the labels themselves and bring them to you, but then it then becomes, yeah, if I'm selling lots of stuff, and when at the peak of me selling lots of my old Star Trek and Star Wars cards and graphic novels and stuff like that, they were maybe collecting 5 things a day. You know, the idea of them coming, bringing 5 labels and got to get on the right things, it just seemed like a sound investment for peace of mind. And once I'm done with that, I might sell it. But nifty. Anywho, back to Harpies. So, I'm not getting a good blurb here. They're made off with the feast the Trojans were setting. They tortured woods infested with Harpies with the suicides of their punishments in the 7th. Okay, you know what? I'm going to hold fire on this for now. I'm going to put a placeholder. because it is not going to be terribly exciting for me. Well, for you, watching me read Greek mythology stuff or other mythology and then condensing it down into snappy little tales. I think that's going to be quite boring. So I'm going to hold fire on that for now. I'll sort that out in my own time. But, I got something like that done. So, let's have... what we're going to do next. So, I think let's get an opinion from the room. Those who would like to chip in. At some point I will find out how to do like polls and stuff like that. As you can kind of tell on my stream setup here, it is very bare bones here. I don't even have a nice interface on this one. I just have, this is my screen. This is a camera. Like I said, I got two I can switch between, and I could technically put on, my stream deck if I wanted to stream stuff from Xbox. But it's pretty bare bones. Even my my starting soon, my be right back, they are not exciting. There's just, here is some text. Here is a public domain video I put on the background, so it looks a little bit more interesting. It is low key. I will find out how to do like polls and stuff like that at some point. But I'll ask them. So, what I think I'm going to do now with this, because there is still no word on Baldur's Gate 3, is I'm going to do a little bit of behind the scenesy stuff before lunch on how I make spells or how I make creatures. Is there any preference of what you'd like to see? Both will be kind of this is how I take the equivalent thing in 5e, run it through a bit of a process of turning it into Little But Fierce content. So which would you prefer to see? Would you prefer to see spells or would you prefer to see creatures? I will give it a couple of minutes. It may just be you, Catherine, and you may just get to make the decision on this one. If everyone else is Lurky McLurkison, which is fine. Or bots. What would you like to see? Spells. Would you like me to show you how I turn D&D spells into Little But Fierce content? Or would you like me to show you how I turn creatures from D&D into Little But Fierce? So spells or creatures? Spells. Interesting. Okay. So, I have a list here of spells I'm going to need to turn into Little But Fierce spells. So the ones in black I have are content that has already been done. So previous me, Clever Dave, did them as part of the original Little But Fierce book, so I don't need to include them here. And there is one on there, which is Silence, which was a spell that I added, or will have added, in Blunderlings when that comes out. So all the stuff in red here is stuff that I still need to write. And as you can see, it still has its original name on there. So I haven't changed the names yet, because currently I'm just using it as a reference of stuff I need to change. So I guess we will start looking through this. And it's been a little while since I've done one of these. So let's go through some of this journey together. And I may just bail out if it's been a while since I've done this. It is essentially when I did Little But Fierce, I had so many spells to do. It was something I put off and put off and put off. Let me show you the spell list for Little But Fierce. So for Little But Fierce, I had all those druid spells and all those mage spells, and it was a lot. I'm not gonna lie, there were evenings where it's like, I really don't want to do this, but I just need to chip away and chip away and chip away at it, and I got it done. And some of them are dead easy. Your basic you know, roll to attack, or they make a saving throw or equivalent thereof, and then you cause some damage. Those aren't too bad. Though, there are some weird quirks in terms of how damage scales. That's the only bit that's complicated about that. But again, I built a spreadsheet in order to help me with that. Others are bizarre, where I've got to, figure out exactly how I want something to work. Let's show you examples. People are not seeing, like, tiny hut. So a dome of energy appears around you, spreading 2 units in all directions. So that's one thing I had to change. I had to change the feet measurements in D&D into units, which broadly speaking is 5 feet is 1 unit. Is what I used for that. Just going to check, how's the size of stuff? Do I need to make stuff bigger? Because I'm aware of the fact I'm using a giganimous monitor, and you might be watching my stream on a less giganimous monitor. So I'll try and make stuff zoomed in so you can see it. And then there's vague blurbs I need to try and nail down. And one of my kind of principles on this, I'm just going to take my music down a little bit, is that I don't want to be too prescriptive in what you can and can't do with spells. I think a lot of the fun of D&D, especially when you're a kid, or anything like that, is being able to take a rule, a concept, and run with it in a ludicrous manner. Here's a thing I can do with a spell. Probably wasn't what it was intended to do, but yay. And that's not a metagaming-y thing. That's I've given you some tools. Please use them in crazy, exciting ways. So I try not to be too prescriptive in some stuff, but equally I need to put the boundaries in place where there need to be boundaries. So that's a tough road to walk on this one. Like some I've had to be really specific on, and others I try and keep kind of vague. And I haven't had too much feedback on the spells. Okay, well let's try this and see how we get on. Like I said, it may be that I need to refresh myself on how I do this, because I haven't done it for a while. When I did Blunderlings, I thought, I've got to add all the ranger spells. And it turns out there's like 2. There's like 2 spells that rangers get using the Creative Commons OGL reference document. There's like 2 spells that rangers get that druids don't already have. So I was all geared up for, I'm going to do spells. And then it's like, it's like nothing. It's like so little I had to do on that. So I never really got back into the swing of it. It was like, these are quite easy. Okay, so let's start looking at this stuff. So, right, let's see what we're doing here. So, what we're going to have to do here, we have 3 spells here in the... Let's resize my screen a bit so we can see what's going on here. So I have 3 simple spells here that I need to write. We have Sacred Flame, Spare the Dying, and Thaumaturgy. So let's start thinking about them. So what I need to do is I need to also grab the fifth edition system reference document, or I could use the one off the shelf. In the interest of not cluttering my screen too much, I'm just going to grab my player's handbook, because none of these spells are named. It's not like Evard's Black Tentacles, where I need to, turn it into the generic version. So I can just reference the player's handbook on this one, because these spells are identical. So I'm going to grab my player's handbook. 1 second. Right, let's look at the player's handbook. So we are going to spells. So simple spells, which are cantrips, and we have Sacred Flame. So Sacred Flame, 1 action, 60 feet. Instantaneous. Flame-like radiance descends on a creature that you can see within range. The target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 1d8 radiant damage. The target gets no benefit from cover for this saving throw. Interesting. Okay. That's a very specific reference there. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And the spell's damage increases by 1d8 when you reach 5th level, 11th level, 17th level. Okay. So first thing on this, we are going to need a name for this. How have I sorted this stuff? It seems to be in a completely arbitrary order how I've sorted some of this stuff. Oh no, it's sorted by 5th edition name. So I've not done Sacred Flame before. We need a name that... Let's search for flame on this and see what we've got. So we've got Flickering Flame, which is my version of Produce Flame. I think that's it. Okay. So, Sacred Flame. All right, we probably don't have sacred in there. It's a word that they probably won't know. So we are keeping the notion here that it is religion-based. Because we are finally biting the bullet and dealing with priests. So I'm thinking Holy Flame. Holy Flame kind of works for me. Because it gets the notion of Sacred Flame without using the word sacred. So I'm thinking Holy Flame is going to be our name for this one. So, which, FG, that's still in the right place in the alphabet. Hey, that's good. I don't even need to reorder this. So I'm going to put a note to myself that we've renamed that into Holy Flame. I'm going to change my spreadsheet. So it is a simple spell that was previously called Sacred Flame. I know I could sort this, but let's do it. Right, so Holy Flame is going to be... Holy Flame? Holy Fire? Flame's fine. Simple. Yeah, which of these is a lookup? One of these is a lookup. So it's an attack spell. Because I have two types of spell. I have attack spells and helper spells. Which is kind of an action economy thing. So you can cast an attack spell and a helper spell in a turn rather than... It's a whole action, bonus action thing. Both are simple actions, but you can do one of each. So it makes them not too overpowered without limiting them too much. So two different things. Cool. Right. So I did this as... I originally built this spreadsheet backwards. Essentially, I did most of the spells, or I started doing the spells without a spreadsheet. I was just kind of doing them by hand. And converting the spell schools in my head. And then I thought, I need to actually QA this. I need to quality assure this. So I built a spreadsheet to cross-check my working. So this works backwards. So it takes the Little But Fierce name and tells me the equivalent 5e school, whereas nowadays I probably want it working the other way around. I should just change the Excel formula at some point to actually do that. But, oh well, let's do this. So, it is... I like this music. It's called Demented Fight. And I can kind of see where it's coming from. It sounds like there's like maybe a bard or a jester who's doing some slightly off the rails kooky fighting. That's cool. Anyway, we are dealing with an evocation cantrip. So evocation is what I call an energy spell. So it's going to be an energy spell. It is usable. It is brand new, so it's just going to be used by priests. It requires an action, so by default that means in Little But Fierce that requires a small action. It has a range of 60 feet, so 60 feet divided by 5 would be 12 units. It lasts, it's instant, it just smushes them, and that's it, and does not require any form of spell components. Okay, So let's put together this spell then. So I'm going to steal this template. Where am I missing some stuff? Oh, there's another freaking page, isn't there? Let's change it to one page view for a second, because otherwise it's going to keep confusing me. Because I am easily confused today. Right. So it's a simple spell. We're calling it Holy Flame. And while I remember, let's do the linking. So I'm going to insert a bookmark for that, and I'm going to then add a link to Holy Flame. And then, as that's done now, I'm now going to do that. I do a lot of colouring stuff in as notes to myself of, you know, what I'm doing and what I still need to do. So now you can see that this links to that. Cool. I like having internal links in documents because I especially while Little Bit Fierce is digital only, I'm assuming that, well, you might print some bits of it. You're probably going to have a tablet, and therefore having internal hyperlinks inside the document is really useful for, rather than, oh, I need to jump to page 240 and I've got to flick through it. You know, I embrace the fact that this is a digital product right now, and therefore you want to be able to click a link and jump straight to that thing. Okie doke. Right, let's fill in the blurb. So it is a simple attack spell. And we call those energy spells. It requires one small action, I believe we said. It is 12 units. It is instant. And it requires no ingredients. Okay, right, now we're going to start stealing from myself. Because why reinvent the wheel? Also, the fact I've not done some of this for a while means I forget how I phrase stuff. So this spell is, broadly speaking, you choose someone, they're going to make a dex save, or they take damage. So let's steal from another simple spell. What's Flickering Flame do? The Druid's Flickering Flame. That sounds kind of... No, it's completely different. I was kind of hoping it would be the same, and it's not. So Firebolt is make a spell attack. That's not the sort of spell this is. Each target must make a spell attack. Oh, come on, there's got to be something that works. There's similar rules there. So I can just steal the words. Make a spell attack. Guide, no. Nope. Shock, make a spell attack. Come on, give me something. Here we go. Poison gas. You create a cloud of poison gas from your hand and blow it towards an enemy in range. The target must make a strength resistance roll against your spell force. If they fail, they take 2d8 poison damage. If they pass, they take no damage. Okay, great. This is what we're talking about. So I'm going to steal that blurb and adapt it because it means I'm consistent in the way I use my language. So, right. So I need a blurb on this one. So it says, flame-like radiance descends on a creature you can see within range. So what are you going to do? You raise your hands. You raise your hands and cause holy fire to fall on an enemy in range. The target must make a, I believe it was dexterity. So dexterity is a speed resistance roll against your spell force. If they fail, they take 1d8, and I will get on to damage in a second. 1d8 poison damage. We don't have, no, it was poison damage. It's going to be radiant damage. Now, I can't remember my name for radiant damage. If I'm clever, I will have used, I had a reference document somewhere that I used for some of this. I can't find where I put it. So I'm just going to check this. So again, this is, I'm picking up some of this stuff I wrote last year, and I should be more familiar with this. I need to get back into the Little Bit Fierce headspace, because what I really want to be doing, what I want to be doing more streams talking about this kind of stuff, whether it's me writing or whether it's more kind of interviewee podcasty stuff. And I want to start probably won't stream games much with Little But Fierce unless I'm doing it with adults who are also, you know, of a like-minded nature. Because I definitely wouldn't stream games with kids. But I do want to start doing some stuff at conventions. I would, you know, especially with awesome TTRPG kids people at conventions. Like I hopefully very soon going to get to meet the folks at Hatchling Games soon. At the very least, a Dragon Meet. I'm hoping I might be able to run some people at MCM Comic Con. And I would love to do a collaboration at some point with Steph from TTRPG Kids, who is just awesome. But they are US based, so anything I do with them will probably be remote. But anyway, yes, I'd like to do some stuff at conventions. So I need to start reacquainting myself with my language and internal rules for Little But Fierce, so that I'm not accidentally dropping into D&D language. And by that, I don't just mean not swearing. Because I'm generally pretty good at that. Yes, I'm swearing a little bit on the stream, but I was a teacher, so I'm pretty good at having that internal switch in my head. That is, you know, don't accidentally swear. Anywho, was it? Right, I think someone getting hurt. There are the damage types. Yeah, okay. So we have... Okay, special damage types are acid, bright, that's the one I want, cold, fire, lightning, mind, poison, rot, and thunder. So it's bright damage. I remember this. I originally was going to call it holy damage, but again, I didn't want the core book to specifically go down a religious route, so I had a bright damage. So it's kind of light, and it's holy, and it's all of that. Cool. If they pass, they take no damage. This thing about no benefits from cover, I'm just going to ignore that, because I don't really have explicit cover rules. The spell damage increases by 1d8 when you reach 5th level, becoming 2d8. And then at 10th level, it's going to become 3d8. Now, I shift that from 5e, because 5e it's 5th and 11th level, but I don't have an 11th level in Little But Fierce. It goes from 1 to 10, so it's ridiculous not to just shift that down to be 10th level. Cool, right. Oh, and it's not poison damage, it's bright damage. Now, here comes the weirdness. And it's a thing I don't like. Yes, sorry. Bobicus or Bobicus. Yes, so thank you for joining. So what this is Little But Fierce. So Little But Fierce is a it is a rewrite of D&D 5th edition. Originally using the Open Gaming license, and now after the fiasco of last year, which was bloody terrifying, now using the Creative Commons 5th edition rule set. So this is it's a version of 5e. It's generally for kids. It's for kids aged 6 and older, but it's generally just a more accessible version of 5e. You know, I've had quite a bit of feedback from people who playtested it originally to play with their kids, but also said, look, I just prefer some of the things you do here, because I just removed some of the needlessly complicated rules. There are definitely rules in 5e which it feels like they were written by a lawyer. You know, it's like, well, I think you'll find I need to write every single clause of this rule to tell you exactly what you can and cannot do. And I totally get that if you're playing with power gamey, metagamey people. But I want to open that up a little bit and have a bit more freedom in this. So Little But Fierce, I've streamlined a lot of rules to make them easier to access. I've also simplified the language so that I don't use overly complicated words and I don't use overly complicated sentence structures. There is a way that you write in D&D inevitably where there's an awful lot of parenthetic commas and brackets and, you know, and sentences that go on quite a journey. I try and keep sentences snappier. Occasionally I will use brackets, but if I use brackets, I use them at the end of a sentence. You know, blah, 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 brackets, here's a little extra note, rather than brackets in the middle of a sentence, because that makes it really hard to read. I also try and avoid scary stuff. Like, I don't have undead, I've got the lost, which is a less scary concept for kids who might be scared of, you know, zombies and skeletons and stuff. And on that note, I generally remove some of the scarier concepts, or at least, give you make it easier to dodge around them if you'd prefer. Like, I don't have people die. If you fail 3 recovery rolls, you get badly hurt. And I don't really go into detail of what exactly that means. The point is they're out, you know. So that's what Little Bit Fierce is. And I released the core version of that last year, back in April. So if you are interested in this, or just generally want to kind of nose around a little bit on that one, there I will chuck a link to my website if you'd like to have a gander. So yeah, I did the starter edition last year that had like some monsters, core rules, 4 classes. And I've done 1 big expansion, 1 mini expansion since, and I'm working on further expansions. All the big expansions basically add a new class and then some other content associated with it. So in this case, this book is the stuff of legends. So it's general themed about kind of Greek, Roman, Norse, general mythology. But from a rule standpoint, one of the big things it adds the priest class, which is my version of a cleric. So what we're currently looking at right now is we are looking at starting to convert some of the specifically cleric spells over into the Little Bit Fierce system. So we're almost done with this one. So yeah, here's the weird bit on damage, and this is not one. So for those who never played Little Bit Fierce before, I'm going to jump down to the character sheet for a second. Oh God, what happened there? Something weird has happened with. I need to fix that. That is horrible. What the heck's happened there? Give me just 1 second. I need to fix this. At some point, I have broken this document. There is something that is not on the correct page. Ugh. That's very annoying. That is supposed to be... Yeah, I know I'm a terrible designer in this sense that I use Pages for this stuff, and I probably should use something like Publisher or equivalent of, but 5.67. But I like Pages, and it gets me where I need to go. It's one of those that let's move with text. Cool. Yes. So the reason I use Pages is essentially I know what my workflow probably should be is that I write all the content in plain text and then format it at the end. But because I do a lot of this myself, I do a lot of the graphic design stuff as I go. I actually get kind of an energy and an enthusiasm from doing the design as I do the writing. It's probably not a great way of working, but it does it creates a nice kind of positive feedback thing for me. So I work most productively when I'm doing the design as I do the writing. Hence the fact working something like Pages is better for me, because otherwise I'd have to write it all in a vacuum and then format it up afterwards, whereas I like kind of doing it as I do it. Anywho, the point I was trying to make before I got distracted by that, this stream has had an awful lot of this so far, is that for those familiar with 5e, the stats, I just take the modifier, so I don't have the main stat anymore, because in like 99% of cases it doesn't do anything. But what I did do is I shifted everything to be positive. So there are no negative attributes. Some creatures have negative stats, but no player characters do. So essentially I added 3 to every modifier. So there's only positive numbers. A downside of that is it broke some of the internal logic on damage scaling, because essentially if every hit you do causes 3 times more damage than it was meant to be, the biggest impact was spells. If you had a modifier in there, at early levels it comes out in the wash. If you had 1d8 plus 3 before, that becomes 1d8 plus 6. That's fine, because their health is similarly scaled. But when you scale that up, if you have, what fireball causes, but let's say you've got a spell that used to cause 46 damage. 46 damage in a system where everything has got 3 added to every modifier is not as powerful as it should be, which means I have to adjust damage accordingly to make it scale. And I did consider at some point just ditching this whole add 3 to the thing, and it's the one thing that nags me about the whole way. I mean, but I like the idea of not having negative numbers. I really do, because especially if you're dealing with younger kids, negative numbers. I was a maths teacher, a maths and computer science teacher. And I know that negative numbers just break some people's heads. So I like the idea that all their ability scores are positive. So I've kept it. And because, I mean, the fact is, the only thing is, when you get to high levels, you can end up rolling quite a lot of dice. But that's fun. Honestly, you know, having a bucket full of dice and then ASMRing them on the table is brilliant. It makes a bit of a headache for me writing stuff, but I have a spreadsheet that helps me. I have so many spreadsheets that help me do this. So it's fine. Anyway, let's get to the point that I was trying to make with all this back at the start. So I need to scale the damage accordingly. This is something I've never actually shared on a... well, this is my first stream, so... but it's something I've not done a Patreon post on beyond a general mention of it. So let's talk a little bit about it. So I have a spreadsheet here that helps me scale damage. There's probably a better way to do some of this, but it's a workflow that works for me. So we've got a simple spell here, and it's called Holy Flame. So Holy Flame used to cause 1d8. It should have been 1d8 bright damage that becomes 2d8 and then becomes 3d8. So I can just steal this from another one, but I'll talk you through my process of how I do it. Because what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to steal it from Flickering Flame that uses the same damage values. So what I then do is I then figure out the average that should roll. So for example, 1d8. I don't use a formula on this one. So 1d8. Do I use a formula? No, I just typed it in. Didn't I? Yeah. Sometimes I stole it. I've got my dice averages here. So 1d8, the average is 4.5. The 2d8, the average is 9, and 10d8 is 13.5. So what my spreadsheet does is it does the adjusted maths on this one of essentially for every level, I add 3 to the total to adjust it for a world where all the rolls are 3 times have an additional 3 added to them. So for a first level spell, it just adds 3. For a 5th level spell, no, I don't add 3. I've added 6. Okay, and then I add 9. It's because they're simple spells. I'm trying to work backwards on the logic I originally did here. It was, yeah, I had logic on this one. It does actually work. I worked it through on this one. I did slightly different logic for spells. So I had 3, I had 6, I had 9. And that gets me that the new averages for what these spells should cause is 7.5 damage, 15 damage, and 22.5 damage. And then what I do is I look at my table here and go, what dice roll roughly gives me 7.5, 15, 22.5? So you can see the answer here and how I got it. So I looked at, well, 7.5 is, well, it's exactly there. 15 is there. And 22.5 is there. So if I shift this from D8, 2D8, 3D8 to 3D4, 6D4, 9D4, I actually get exactly the spread that I want. And it keeps it all balanced because I kind of go on trust here that the 5e designers balanced this, broadly speaking, correctly. So that's going to be my new spell totals on this one. So it's 3d4, 6d4, and 9d4. And let's look at other options I could have done with this. Was there anything that kind of got the same amount? Because inevitably, what I try and do when I do this is it's a balancing act between getting the correct averages, but also not rolling a ridiculous amount of dice. You know, so if I can avoid saying you're going to roll 20 of something, I do that. But I don't think there's a better match on this one. So nothing really hits 7.5. I mean, I could have done this. So 7.5, 14, 21. That's not bad. I could have done 2d6, 4d6, 66, but it's slightly below what it should be. It's got 7, 14, 21. That's not bad, to be honest. If there weren't a perfect match with the d4s, I probably would have gone with that. But you can see some of the similar logic I've done for big spells. So let's look at Lightning Strike here. Used to cause 3d10, 4d10, 5d10. The averages are 16.5, 22, 27.5. Scales, it becomes this. And then I went, well, what's 31.5, 43, 54.5? Well, there's one. That's sort of right. You kind of want something between those two, and then it doesn't quite work. So I went to D10s in the end, and I said 66. That's pretty close, but slightly above. 43, 54. So I went with that. I went with 60, 10, 80, 10, 10, D10. It tends to be that for when you're dealing with large numbers, I don't mind being slightly off. But if I'm dealing with small numbers and every hit point makes a difference, I try to get as close as I possibly can. But yeah, this is my crazy spreadsheet that I use to do this calculation. And it is one thing that's annoying about doing the spells. But at least then the spell's there, and it works. And I know that mathematically it works rather than me just sticking my finger in the air and say, yeah, it's roughly that. Because especially when I eventually get to the Kickstarter hardback edition, then it's out in the world. At this stage, it's a digital thing that I'm more than happy to release a next version of. And I can fix things that are wrong. The second I get to a hardback and people printed it, I don't want to be doing errors on it because that just sucks. So, cool. So, at the moment, debating whether to continue brainstorming some world building I want to do for NaNoWriMo, or work on my own tabletop RPG design. Oh, both are fun. You know, they scratch different itches, I think. You know, what is your RPG broadly about? Is it kind of a fantasy thing? Is it a sci-fi thing? Cozy, love it. Cozy witches after a magical war, making the world a better place. That's just freaking lovely. That is just wonderful. So what would you see as the let's look at the manifesto. I love that. Have you got a name for it yet? That's really kind of cozy. I like that. I like that. Whereabouts are you on the socials? Or do I follow you already and I just don't recognise your username? In which case, I will apologise profusely. Because I want to know more about that and I want to keep an eye on that as you develop it. Because that's just nice. And the world needs more nice. Cool. Well, I'm going to follow you so that when you stream, I will watch some of that. But if you do decide to join each other's socials, please do, because that is absolutely wonderful. And I know a lot of people who are absolutely for that jam of cozy witches. And when you get to it, I know there are a lot of artists out there who would absolutely love to do illustrations for cozy witches. Making the world a better place. So please do. Because that's cool. I like that. And best of luck to you, because yeah, like I said, that is an awful lot of fun. And in terms of a RPG is a relaxing, positive, collaborative thing, I can't think of anything better than, Cozy Witches making the world a better place. So I wish you all the best with that. That's fun. Let's change the music. Well, we've had this one on for a little while. We've had ambient, we've had fantasy. Let's go to unplugged. This will probably be less fantasy jam, but let's just turn that down a little bit. For those who won't know, what we're currently listening to is a Humble Bundle. It is the Audio Odyssey bundle on a Humble Bundle, which I picked up, and it's royalty free and therefore great for freaking streaming. So good for streaming, and I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff there for actually doing streamed games. I've listened to the horror music pack a bit. There's some good bits and pieces there. Okay. So brainstorming a world where spirits of animation can be pulled from the ether to make golems and fantasy mechas, giving a facsimile of life to the inanimate. That's fun, and you can go all kinds of directions with that. So you can have the kind of golem-y, very kind of traditional fantasy stuff. But it also scratches the Disney itch. It's Sorcerer's Apprentice and stuff like that. Bring the brooms to life, and that's nice. I like that. It reminds me a little bit. I mean, there's tangents in my head, as there tend to be. I wrote a while back. My other kind of big brand product I did was something called Hard Boiled Adventures, which was so far 2 D&D 5e books, which are essentially take traditional sword and sorcery fantasy and update the time frame to kind of a 1940s kind of noir, but still fantasy. So you've got orc detectives and tiefling, casino owners and stuff like that. And one of the things I had good fun doing with that was technomancy. I took what happens in a world where you've got magic and you're building technology, and then you run it through. And so I had a lot of fun with that kind of stuff about, animating machines and stuff like that. And one of the favorite things I did with that was I had a paladin spell, which was essentially the summon steed, but it was summon a motorbike that's imbued with like a spirit. So there was a Ghost Rider kind of vibe to that one. But I just loved the idea of like a 1940s paladin, riding around on their, motorbike that has a personality. I like this music. This music's nice. Right, I think let's go for 10 more minutes, and then I need to eat something because it is 1:45. And you know what? It'd be really nice, Larian, if you actually fricking drop the patch for Baldur's Gate 3 so I can play it on my Mac. Because I just want to do that. I have... please tell me. Please tell me it's coming today. Someone's posted it's been delayed by a day, but I think that could be yesterday. Yeah, that's reporting about yesterday. Please, just for those joining, I originally intended today to play Baldur's Gate 3. Because it was meant to come out on the Mac yesterday. I booked today's leave for today so that I could actually just get stuck into it. Because normally I only get to play in the evenings once my 3-year-old's gone to bed. So I was just going to play it. And then they bumped it by a day, which is fine. but I don't know when it's going to release today. You know, and this is a time zones thing. This is me in the UK waiting for a studio in America to drop their big patch, which could mean it's like 5 p.m. here before I actually get to download this patch and play the fricking game. So that's annoying. But you know, these things happen. But it means I got to do this. You know, I think, you know, all things considered, I have had quite a good morning. I said this is my first stream, and I've quite enjoyed doing a bit of writing and talking through my process with you fine folk. So, that's cool. Even if it's not quite what I originally intended to do with the morning. So, that's that. Right, I'm not going to do all of these today. In fact, I'm not. The other two I'm going to do, I need to do for simple spells, is Spare the Dying and Thaumaturgy. So Spare the Dying is in theory quite an easy one. So Spare the Dying, if memory serves, is a simple spell that stabilizes a creature that is on 0 hit points. So they become stable. Now, I don't have a concept of stable. That sounds like a very philosophical or psychological thing. I don't have a concept of stability, which is potentially true. No, I'm exaggerating. But so thinking about Little Bit Fierce stuff, and I'm just going to brainstorm at this stage. I'm probably not going to write this today. So in Little But Fierce, we have familiar rules around that's not a word, around getting knocked out. So when you drop to 0 health, you fall down and are knocked out. Well, knocked out, you can't do anything on your turn except make recovery rolls, which we'll talk about in a moment. Only heroes get knocked out. If anyone drops to 0 health, they're badly hurt, which is described below. So this is familiar. You know, we've got the notion of recovery rolls, which are like death saving throws. And if you've not seen this before, Little Bit Fierce uses D10s, not D20s. But otherwise familiar. However, what I don't have here is a notion of being stabilized. I'd rather not introduce the rule just to say here. So what I'm thinking here is that it's not going to raise them to 1 hit point, because if I raise them to 1 hit point, it's just a bit too powerful. It's literally just spam, boof, you're back on 1 hit point, so you're back in the game. So I'm thinking, broadly speaking, similar to being stabilized, you don't have to make recovery rolls anymore. Or maybe, okay, what if we just go for that they go onto 1 health, but stay asleep? Stay asleep until they're healed, or the fight is over. That works. It kind of ticks the same boxes. So you're not going to die or get badly hurt, but you don't just get jumped straight back into the fight. So you're asleep, you're on 1 hit point. Okay, let's make a note for future me, because my energy's kind of dropping here, and I don't think I'm going to write these out in full. So let's go for back to 1 health, but asleep until healed, or the fight is over. Let's leave that as a note to myself there. That's what I'm thinking on Spare the Dying. Which is going to need a new name, because everything needs a new name. Well, no, not everything needs a new name. Ah, god damn it, that's not what I meant to do. Can I do formatting in comments, in pages? Okay, fine. Spare the dying. Well, let's brainstorm names. So we're not having the word dying in there. We could call it stabilize, but I'm not sure that's a word that kids would know. So rescue? Rescue's not too bad. I already have a spell. That I'll just drop some more. Have I not included it on here? Have I not? I think I may have missed something from this spell list. So I have a spell called... I can't remember what it's called. This is what I get if I jump back something. So I have something called Get Help, which is a simple spell that you can include or not include, but essentially it's a little safety net for kids playing the game. You touch a friend who's badly hurt and they're instantly transported back to their home or another safe place that you know. So essentially it gets them out of the game. They're not going to die. But it's kind of a happy ending kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, we know they're kind of out. There's nothing we can do about it, but... And there we go. They're safe, and we may see them again later, in hospital or something like that. So I've not included that here, and clearly they should have it. So Spare the Dying is kind of the equivalent of this, except it's you're going to bring them back. They're still in danger. It's kind of a middle ground, and that's maybe the problem here. Is Spare the Dying is kind of a middle ground. You're not teleporting them out to safety. And just biting the bullet and saying they're gone. But they're not imminently going to die, but you're still in the combat. So for example, if you're fighting in a volcano that's filling with lava, Get Help is great. It's like, bam, they're gone. They're not going to get burned to a crisp. Our Spare the Dying equivalent is probably less useful there. Because, they're not immediately going to bleed out, or child-friendly equivalent of, but, if the lava keeps rising, they're still in trouble. So I'm going to give this some thought. Does this overlap? Yeah. How does this overlap with Get Help? And I do need to stick Get Help in this table because it's important. And I forgot to include it somehow. Somehow I forgot to include it when I did the prep work here. So let's... chuck Get Help in here. Remove the link. Spell this. Your side if you get the Get Help spell. And I don't have a note at the bottom, do I? No, that's fine. So let's go. I need to think about that, and I need to think about that. Thaumaturgy is kind of an easy one, though. Thaumaturgy is, broadly speaking, it's like Druidcraft, it's like Prestidigitation, which is freaking hard to say. Which what did I rename that as? Oh, it's not. I call Prestidigitation Party Tricks. So that's Party Tricks, which is Prestidigitation. So that'll be a nice, easy one to write. I just need another name that kind of means Party Tricks, but it's not the same thing. Or I could just give them Party Tricks. I could just expand. I mean, I'm going to have to look about what the real difference between Thaumaturgy and Prestidigitation is. They kind of scratch the same itch. Druidcraft's a bit different because you make plants. But both Prestidigitation and Thaumaturgy are both kind of, I'm going to do some low-level stuff. Mostly cosmetic. So I need to have... I mean, Thaumaturgy is a bit more illusion-y, isn't it? Let's have a gander at the player's handbook and read the blurb. Thaumaturgy. You manifest a minor wonder, a sign of supernatural power within range. You create one of the following magical effects. You can make your voice boom. You can make flames flicker. You can make a sound. What's the frickin' difference? It lasts for a minute. And party tricks last for an hour. What's the difference? It can cause unlocked doors to open. I'm very tempted to say I just give them party tricks and forget about thaumaturgy entirely. Let's. Because the fact is, if me, who's been playing for a while, is really struggling to come up with a good difference between these two things, you know, why bother doing this? So what I might do here is I might give priests the party trick spell as well, and I might expand the scope of party tricks slightly to cover some of the things that are explicitly thaumaturgy in 5e. And then just make them one spell. Because it's just a bit silly, I think. Last thing on this, let's do a quick skim through and see if there's anything we think is going to be weird. So, Bane and Bless, those are pretty straightforward. Command, I just need to make sure it doesn't sound... As with any domination kind of control spell, I just need to make sure it falls into that kid-friendly space of you're suggesting they do something, but they're not going to do something they really don't want to have to do, so it's not a bullying type thing. It's just a bit of trickery. Detect evil and good, that'll probably go, because I don't have a notion of alignment in Little But Fierce. Because it's just a pain in the ass, frankly. The notion of things being fundamentally good or bad just sucks balls. So I don't like that. It's going to go. If you are wondering what the equivalent is, I do a little questionnaire. So this is the alignment equivalent little questionnaire that goes on the hero sheet, which is 2 questions about right and wrong. Are they nice to strangers? Do they normally follow the rules? And there's a legitimate follow-up question of whose rules. Happy and sad, what hobbies do they enjoy? What really scares them? And hopes and dreams, what do they want to do when they eventually get old and stop questing? That's my alignment equivalent. I think it gives a nice little snapshot profile of what they are like as a person. Better than I think things like knowing that they're chaotic neutral can do. And if you're wondering, do I do the same thing for creatures? The answer is yes. So if let's look behind the scenes for a second at the adventure that is in Blunderlings. Please excuse the fact it says missing fonts. I had an Adobe font subscription before that I got for free with my work and then changed jobs. I don't have that subscription anymore. And I'm still weighing up whether I want to dive into the pool of Adobe subscriptions. I either do, and I got to pay a cost, which kind of sucks, or I have to go back and change a load of fonts in stuff I previously made, which sounds like a headache. And the Adobe fonts are good, so I need to look further into that one. But yeah, that's what it says about fonts and stuff looking ugly. But yeah, here we go. Here are... here's an example of what this looks like for a creature. Yeah, so here we've got Weasel, a shopkeeper. What do they look like? A thin, white-furred rat folk who looks quite a lot like a weasel. Are they nice to strangers? Very. She's kind and welcoming to everyone. Do they follow the rules? Most of the time. She likes singing, doesn't like fire, and wants to buy a boat and sail the seas as a swashbuckling weasel pirate. Because who doesn't want to do that? You know, all said and done. What do I want to do with my life? I would be a swashbuckling weasel pirate. Because, you know, that's fun. And I think that is possibly the point we end the stream on. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to go eat something. I am going to hope, beyond hope, that Baldur's Gate 3 drops for Mac this afternoon. I get to play it this afternoon because that would be very fun. But if not, I might do more writing, and if so, I'd probably stream it because I found it kind of useful. It means I'm talking to other people rather than just blethering to myself. And it helps me get concepts across, and it's nice to just kind of advertise the shit I do. So have a good day. Thank you very much. And ta-ta for now. Thank you. All right. Bye.